There was a period when Jessica was a military trainee. Her extensive training had equipped her to handle any eventuality. Still, as this guy charged at her, she forgot all she had ever learned. Her body trembled. That day, on that aircraft, what did she have in mind for herself? The journey home for the holidays was underway. Since she hadn't seen her family in much too long, she really needed to visit them. She felt a little ache in her heart every day due to the distance. What mattered most to her, however, was that her actions benefited her nation. Getting her passport in hand, she made her way to the boarding gate. However, she sensed something was off about that day the moment she glanced at her seat. Traveling by air may be a daunting, if not terrifying, experience. There isn't much space for you to stretch out in this cramped area. Still, it's the most efficient means of quickly going from A to B. This is exactly what Jessica was hoping for. It was completely overbooked on the day she got on the plane. There wouldn't be any empty seats for her to spread out or have some more space. She knew that. Unbeknownst to her, her desire would be granted. We should all be more grateful for the efforts of military officers like Jessica, who struggle against all obstacles to keep the nation secure. However, there was one individual that day who had complete clarity. Everyone wishes they could travel in more luxury, but unfortunately, that isn't always possible. Because first and business class aircraft tickets are so much more costly than economy seats, the majority of us may be confident that we will have a very unpleasant journey. On that particular day, Jessica had no idea that she would really feel more at ease than she had anticipated. She proceeded to the rear of the aircraft while clad in her uniform and carrying her rucksack. She still had a ways to travel before she could get a seat, since her boarding card indicated that she was in 31B. She peered over the window seats of the business class cabin as she boarded the aircraft. She would never be able to afford such large and luxurious accommodations. Somebody was secretly chatting to the flight attendant about Jessica while she searched for her seat, and she had no clue. She persisted in dragging her possessions until, at last, the row of 31 chairs was in sight. After securing her shoulder bag in the overhead compartment, she took a seat. It seemed like this plane's departure was going behind schedule as 10 minutes grew into 15 and then 20. For some reason, this flight just didn't sit right with Jessica. The weather is usually the reason aircraft are delayed, but today there was clear weather. She looked around for a flight attendant to inquire about the holdup, but she couldn't see one. Subsequently, she detected murmurs of anxiety. "Tell me what happened." The crew cabin caught Jessica's eye. They were behaving suspiciously. As they hastened to gather in one corner of the aircraft, there was a flurry of covert motion. "Tell me what happened." She quickly grasped that they were referring to a passenger. Suddenly, someone began to approach her. Flight attendants covered their faces with their hands and giggled softly. Something was occurring, and she was very unhappy about it. It seemed as if they were referring to her specifically. When she traveled in uniform, she was used to looks and murmurs. But this circumstance was different. Jessica chose to disregard it in the end, but she still felt uneasy about it. Overworked was Jessica. Anxiety had twisted her muscles into knots. However, she could quickly recall her extensive military experience in an emergency. She hoped today would be trouble-free. She was never sure when she would have to eliminate a danger, even while she was off duty. She became aware of him at that moment. His approach toward Jessica was deliberate, and she felt her heart race. He took what seemed like an eternity to get to her. Subsequently, the peculiar man's actions validated Jessica's concerns. Jessica could read his expression as he prepared to speak. However, he made an entirely surprising remark thereafter. The guy moved in closer and made a motion toward her seat. He wasted no time in telling her that the seat had already been reserved. With wide, disbelieving eyes, Jessica glanced about. Dare he? I wonder, she pondered. "I'm taking your seat," he adamantly said. What he was saying was completely foreign to her. He said, "What does your ticket say?" with a hint of frustration. "No, I'm 31B," Jessica corrected. No amount of deceit could sway her. The ticket had the designation 31B. Standing up, she double-checked, and sure enough, she was correct. She was determined to stand firm. To what extent was this guy naive? How about the game he was playing? The flight attendants gave her the silent treatment while she sought their help. However, the stranger proceeded to explain. She was unable to use the seat since she was a military officer. Despite his admiration for her tireless efforts to ensure the safety of American citizens, he insisted that she take a seat elsewhere. Jessica sat quietly and took in his arguments. And then, to her utter surprise, it happened. The unusual guy expressed his gratitude for her daily efforts by offering her his business class ticket as a mark of appreciation. Jessica attempted to decline the good man's offer, but he persisted, and she was startled. After he offered her his seat, she returned to the aircraft via the same narrow passageway. What had just transpired was unbelievable to her, but her body begged for the roomier, more comfy chairs. She seemed utterly unable to repay him in any way. She had been working tirelessly for days as a trainee military officer. She felt achy all over, and her muscles throbbed. Upon reaching home and finally being able to relax, Jessica believed her efforts would be rewarded. However, the greatest present she could have received was from this mysterious stranger. The guy who relinquished his seat was etched in Jessica's mind. She was dwarfed by the generous man's stature. Considering how small the economy seats were for her, she couldn't even begin to fathom how he must have felt. There was nothing Jessica could do to alleviate the fact that the intriguing stranger was likely somewhat uncomfortable sitting down. She was aware that he would flat out refuse to relinquish his first-class seat if she attempted to do so. A $20 and some scrawled notes were her next move, so she had the attendant bring them to her. His eyes widened when he read the message. It stated, "If everyone treated people the way you treated this servicewoman, the world would be a better place." Additionally, she requested that he be provided with refreshments. Naturally, however, the guy declined. Nonetheless, Jessica received a second message from the unidentified guy. She couldn't help but crack a grin as she read it. He turned down her offer, but instead suggested they meet up for supper on him when their plane touched down. It seemed like a date. While penning her response, Jessica felt a knot in her gut. She gladly accepted, of course. The man's kind act had won her heart over to him. Jessica, overcome with joy, forgot her exhaustion as they met at a restaurant soon after their jet touched down. Something that happened to her on a plane, which felt like it belonged in a fairy tale, was something she never imagined. On what seemed like it would be a terrible day, Jessica got so much to be grateful for. Nonetheless, she succeeded. "I owe everything to this kind guy." The guy thanked her for the message and expressed his gratitude, but he still turned down the money. A second passenger on board saw it all and felt compelled to tell the tale, which subsequently gained widespread attention online. Jessica Titus, a female observer, had been there the whole time. This amazing tale of empathy and compassion had to be told, and it was. Within an hour of her story's posting, over 4,000 individuals had shared it. Countless individuals gathered and exchanged tales that were very similar. While returning from California, one lady named Kate Nixon recounted an incident in which someone had done the same thing for her husband, who was also serving in the Army. Such a gesture really blew their minds. "You guys are incredible. We don't see people's hearts very frequently, yet they do exist." The nameless guy received acclaim and admiration for an act he wished to remain unrecognized for when he shared the tale online. His motivation was pure altruism. More people should be like that.